So have there been any NGO that is not, of course, under the government that has been, pinpointed at some point, say, you did this, and this is why this bill is coming up? Because she mentioned some other government agencies who they have had times explaining how they spent the donor funds. So are there those NGOs that you can give us one example?
Yes, to the best of my knowledge, yes. I'm not sure, but I know they exist. And the best person to be able to answer that question is the sponsor of the bill, because something informed the presentation or the drafting of the bill. So he's in a better position to be able to answer that question. But definitely, I know that I've had complaints, I've read complaints about those funds. The majority of the recipients, that's the company or the NGO, use a lot of it for recurrent expenditure rather than it going into the... One of the things I've heard, I haven't confirmed its veracity, and that was even said by one of the presenters at the public hearing. A law school said, I think 1990, brought out a fantastic paper that said this commission is desirable. The content, the clauses, they don't agree entirely with it, but they think it is necessary if it is amended appropriately.
Okay, so why do we need this commission? Because it's just coming back to me, and we are talking about, bringing down the cost of governance. If we set up this commission, there's going to be, of course, the physical building, you have people to work there, you have the need to buy cars and other, things that needs to...
Money that should have gone to take care of the issues.
Meanwhile, there are other agencies and, processes that are already in place that is monitoring some of the activities of these NGOs. Why do we need this commission?
Yes, like I said earlier, and Mr. Ajulo corroborated, it's regulation. If you regulate, if you sanitize the industry more of these...
Even with all of this other,
Yes,
more
of these donor agencies will come. That's one. Two, we said earlier that it's a one-stop shop. It's a one-stop shop that brings all these critical organizations together in one building.
So that means you'd collapse CAMA. That's the Companies and Allied Matters Act. You have to collapse that. You collapse the SCUML, that's a special control unit affiliated on money laundering affiliated with the EFCC. You collapse all of that so that it will come under this commission.
That's right. A suggestion from me.
Okay.
It's not a... you see, the reason why...
your suggestion?
Yes, the reason why you have a public hearing is that you look at the document, you look at the intent. Do you agree with the intent? I do agree with it. I believe that the NGOs must be regulated one way or the other. But I don't agree with all the clauses contained therein. I believe they need to be looser. And I always say that the stakeholders on the other side have a lot of resource, because they're international donors, they represent a diverse sphere in our national life. They have that resource. They can sit down and we can work together to make this document
a lot better.
Better.
Victoria, you should be happy if all these things will be collapsed into one umbrella. That should make the NGOs happy.
Some people are asking the question too, what is in regulating NGOs? If you have all of the documents, all you need to do is to go to that commission and submit it.
Yeah, that's how...
And then, sorry, before you go on, in all of this bill, is there not one thing that the NGOs think, because I'm looking at the bill, clause 32, and it's talking about government may provide relevant financial and institutional support to these organizations to help them achieve their aims.
Okay, let me start with that last one. I am a researcher by profession, and I research governance issues. I'm a policy analyst, basically, and maybe I'm researching oil subsidy. And I take money from NNPC, and I'm researching the scandal corruption in NNPC. Number one, my life, as I'm talking to you, may be at risk because of the kind of things, exposure that may come out, because I am now attacking the source of my funding. That is number one. If not anything, in law, it's called conflict of interest. That's a big issue. So if I want to be impartial, and objective, it might be necessary for me to maybe find resources elsewhere that can enable me to look at your records, and come out with some conclusion. That's also one thing. Then another thing is that we are assuming that people that run NGOs, that there is like a course you read in the university, like Mr. Ajolo kept talking about lawyers, engineers. These are professions, diverse professions. There is no course called NGO law or NGO degree that when you graduate from a university, you are awarded BSc in NGO sector. So when you come out, you go and register in that NGO union or association and become a member. So all of the associations is talking about, I'm a lawyer, member of the Nigerian Bar Association. You are probably an engineer, member of any. So when we're talking about regulatory burdens, you have fees, dues. In organization, we also handle litigation on behalf of people who may have been forcefully evicted. So we pay a lot of dues and fees to get our sales, to keep the office running. So it means I go through all of that, but then the person that is an engineer in our office goes through the same thing, the person is a nurse in our office goes through the same thing, the person is a doctor in our office goes through the same thing. All of us work in an NGO because different professions work in an NGO. Then when you talk about the question said about recurrent expenditure, you have created a law that requires me to spend 70% of my money on recurrent expenditure. Because I have to comply, pay my dues, do my returns here. The engineer does same, the doctor does same. All of us work in the same firm. So every year we spend half of the year doing filing return to different associations and unions. Then the real advocacy or research we've come to do is still untouched. So these are some of the regulatory burdens that NGOs say, please allow us to get the work done. It's too much of, too many things are going on.
He says they will collapse everything. It's a one-stop shop.
It's not possible. Let me tell you why it is not possible.
Said, give us a document that will work, that you guys will be satisfied with. We will look at it.
Okay.
It's not like I always go back to. It's not civil society or NGOs against Abacha. We want to work with you. But you're not giving us that opportunity.
Okay, there are two things. There are two ways of looking at that issue. But before I talk about the Voluntary Council of Agencies that's being talked about, why it is not possible, what we are collapsing may not work, is I'm a member of the NBA. I'm not going to deregister myself from NBA, for instance, to enable me to work in a non-governmental organization. Except maybe there is a law in place that says if you work in an NGO, you are hereby exempted
for
from
the period
all of the throughout the period. If I see that legislation first, I'll say these people mean business, so maybe I might want to listen to them. I see them repeal KAMA. For instance, I say party of KAMA will no longer be handled by KAMA. Then I hear them say, I don't need to file anything with SCUMO. When I see some of those steps do what? They build trust. You now know that this is heading towards a particular direction. And that trust is not done by just, first of all, you passing the bill, then you want to turn trust. It's an Abacha, when you say this is also, it's an Abacha tactic that is just being employed. So people are responding to the Abacha strategy.
We have to go. So let's start with the closing moments. Mr. Ajolo, your closing thoughts, please.
One question which I am a little bit worried about. I expect somebody to answer it. When you say, is there some NGOs that have been found fault of the law? Though one will not use this occasion to mention names, but 20 years ago, Victoria and I will realize that Chief Ganifa raised the issue of some of us collecting money and not using it for the right thing. But as it is, one thing I keep on saying is this: there is a need to regulate every human endeavors, including NGO. NGO should not be run like a court, and that is why I believe that we need to regulate it. And if they are saying today they don't need that regulation, then the question is that where lies the principle? Where lies the ethical belief that everything must be done transparency? There must be accountability. Thank you.
So, Victoria.
Yeah, I think there is a section of the bill that they wanted to suggest something and ended up overreaching it, which is the Voluntary Council of Agencies, which they said NGOs will form by themselves, the first 100 NGOs, to register will form the, probably if they allowed NGOs to form that and develop their own code of conduct without governmentalizing the body, requiring people from the commission to supervise the operations, without developing because the bill itself is a code of conduct. You develop a code of conduct and then require them to develop another code of conduct. So which one overrides the other? So probably if NGOs are given that opportunity to go back, probably develop some kind of soft rules that respond to some of those coordinating issues. But if you are talking about regulation, I think the government, this is the time to strengthen existing regulatory mechanisms that are already in the country.
Yes, thank you. I believe that what the public hearing sought to do, is to find a workable solution, a win-win position for everyone. So the public hearing provided an avenue for everyone to sit down and look at the clauses by clause. It's not cast in stone.
Okay.
We wanted you to replace, tear down, add. Oh, that's the opportunity we gave. Okay. We didn't bring you to come and say.
Okay. Thank you all for coming on this morning and for your contributions. We've been speaking with a member of the House of Representatives, Babajide Benson, and also Executive Director Spaces for Change, Victoria O'Hairi, and from our Abuja studio, a legal practitioner, Kayode Ajulo. Thank you all for coming on this morning.